I've got the WhatsApps where my daughter is copying and photocopying bank statements that she's seen and sending them to her mum and saying, I've got these bank statements, I've seen them from Dad and I'm sending them to you. And I had this funeral and I wanted to go to the funeral, which was a week before my son was born. And my ex said, no, you shouldn't go to the funeral.
Why?
Because, she was like, I might give birth. It's consent. It's a court order by consent is far more powerful. And I would recommend any dads out there, please, please do everything in your power to have a court order by consent. And even if it means giving up the arrangements that you really want, go, and it may mean you have to go for less.
Good afternoon. Welcome to Disqualified Dads. I have a very special guest with me today who I'll be speaking to about his journey and the challenges he has faced with the CMS. And like I said, this is a story you don't want to miss. But before we continue, please like, subscribe and follow. Right, Jeremy, do you want to just introduce yourself, tell us who you are and why we're here and what we're going to talk about today?
Hi, I'm Jeremy. I live in Watford and I've two kids who are now 17 and 14, 15 even. And I've had a roller coaster ride since we separated in 2014, 8 years ago. Very up and down, and it's an ongoing battle for justice in many ways, and to see my kids.
Okay, so just to clarify, Jeremy, you were in a relationship and the usual setup, relationship broke down, I presume, and you lost contact with your kids, and then obviously you had dealings with the CMS then on, and then you realised the brutality of the laws and the system and the so-called democracy we live in, yeah?
Yeah.
So let's start at the beginning. Let's start with your relationship, how you met your ex-partner, how things were, if you're comfortable talking about it. Let's just start right at the beginning. So tell us about your relationship. When did you meet your ex-partner?
Well, I met my ex-partner around 2000, and it was fine for a year or so. In fact, it was all right until my first daughter was born, Lily, really. There wasn't anything in our relationship that was... I came from a clean, healthy background. There was no issues in the marriage, no serious issues. There were no drugs, there was no alcohol, there was no violence, there were no affairs or anything. You could just simply say we fell out of love.
Okay, so how long did you know your missus for prior to you getting married?
I think it was about a year or so.
So you knew each other for a year, you were happy, you were both happy, you got married and you were married for a year.
Yes, we were married, and then it was for a couple of years, and then my daughter was born.
Sorry, yes, sorry, my bad, I missed that, but yeah.
Yeah.
Couple of years, daughter was born.
And then the love just disappeared, you could say. There was nothing untoward in the marriage.
See,
there were no major issues.
See, it's funny you say that, right? Because all the people I've now interviewed, all the fathers I speak to, I'm now seeing a pattern. People were married, a lot of guys, like I said, from all the people I've interviewed, all the fathers I speak to, what they're saying is they were married. Once they had the child, things changed. And what I'm alluding to is this postnatal depression,
yes,
postnatal hormonal changes seems to be, I think, a big factor in the missus's personality, which then brings up other issues. And this is what I'm noticing. Do you think that could have played a part?
I really do think that it could have been postnatal depression. It was interesting because my ex said to me just before the kids arrived, she said to me quite sternly, she said, you do realise that when the child arrives, you're not going to be number one anymore. And it was as if I wasn't expecting. I was expecting that the child needs to come first.
Yes.
But what I wasn't expecting that I would be dumped to number 3 or 4 in the pile after her mother,
Yes.
and the child, and then it was as if I was relegated to the job and role of
Yeah.
skivvy and
Skivvy,
money
yeah.
earner, and that's what I wasn't expecting.
Funny, I'm getting deja vu here. Getting deja vu here, bro.
Yeah.
I'm getting PTSD as you're telling me. This seems to be this again. Look, I come from a completely different background and culture, but guess what? The behavior that you have just described, the pattern that you have just described, cross-community culture is the same societal pattern that seems to take place. You're just a provider, cash machine, caretaker, general skivvy. Her mum, dad, her side of the family seem to take priority, and you're playing for their team. You're just.
I was doing everything. I was doing everything I could to support the family, working extra hard, long hours, trying to keep actually. We were going into debt, and that's what I didn't realize. We were going into debt, me supporting her, really living in a lifestyle that was beyond our means.
So
That was the issue. I was actually working long hours, working really hard, but being asked to work harder, but also spend more time with the kids and give her more time free when she wasn't working. And that was it was a what can I say? It was a treadmill.
Yeah, no,
it was a treadmill I was on, working really hard.
I hate when someone places that. The problem with what you're saying is this, and what people don't realize is, okay, you're a man, you need to provide work hard, you'll do that anyway, without being told.
Yeah.
So when you do that, that comes at a cost, because you want to give her all the things she wants, you give your child all the things that comes at a cost. Then when you get home, but you're always out working, you're not spending time with the kids. I'm like, okay, I'll try and do that. But you're not spending time. Whatever you did would have been wrong. So I just want you to know, it doesn't matter what you did. You could have ticked all the boxes, but you would have been wrong. If you did 1 to 10, it'll be but you're not doing 11, 12, 13, 14. One
of the remarkable things was just that she was doing a little bit of part-time work for me, and I was paying her, and actually the money I was paying her was going straight into her own private account.
Wow.
So I was paying her like £700 a month into her private account, but we had a separate joint account. So that £700 a month was for her just to spend on what she wanted. And it's like, and including taking my daughter for 5 weeks to Australia, went on holiday without me.
Bloody hell.
So yeah.
Very nice.
And after 3 years, we couldn't afford it. We just couldn't. I just looked, and we could not afford it. I sat down with my accountant to try and explain with her, we couldn't afford it, and that I needed to stop paying that into her private account because I was spending almost nothing. It was as if for me, the money I earned was family money.
Yeah, this is what I'm saying. So what you were giving her was her money, but what you were earning was all family money.
Yeah, I mean, I remember buying a bicycle so I could commute to work, and it was on the canal path, and I wrecked a pair of trainers after a dozen rides all set. The trainers were completely wrecked. So I wanted to buy some cycle shoes so that I could commute. And I'm still using those cycle shoes, by the way, today, and that's nearly 14 years ago. Same pair. But I remember it because I bought them, because I needed them. And I was given hell for spending £60 on a pair of shoes that I needed, which actually allowed me to commute to work and save money by not spending petrol money.
Let me ask you a question then, Just stay with me here. You are getting hell for spending money on bicycle shoes, and you're getting emotional abuse because of this. Is that not in the family court system? Would that not be classed as financial abuse?
Yes, which I've suffered from all along, I'm afraid.
It's funny that you hear these buzzwords that are used against mostly men, but it seems to be in most cases that all the cases I speak to, it is an accepted position when it's the other way around. So effectively, you were being financially abused.
Yeah.
You had no sort of say or stake in. Basically, you were a passenger in your own family life.
Yeah.
That was your position. Yeah.
And it continued when we had 2 family cars which we couldn't afford, and at the point where one of those cars actually died, a head gasket blew, and we just couldn't. And it was an economic write-off, and And I said, look, we can't afford to run 2 family cars. I'll commute to work. And I was given hell. And the times when she needed the car, I was given hell, even though we just shared, or I would cycle to work. So we could manage, but it was like, and I was doing everything that I could.
Yeah, but I think the thing is, Jeremy, the reality is this. It doesn't matter what you did, it would have never been good enough. You was always going to be wrong because you were never, and now I understand these things clearly, and I've speak to many, many fathers as well, and having in-depth experience myself of this form of emotional control that they have over you.
Yeah. What?
You were never going to win. You were a passenger. You were not given the respect and love that you should have had from a loving, caring, supporting partner. You know what I mean?
No, that was the issue. The love died, and it had died for several years before we separated. And
No, but hold on. When you say the love died, did the love died on her part?
well,
No, but your love died because of the way you were being treated, yeah?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, so we got to go back. So we can say, look, the love died. You're making it like it was a mutual situation. Your love died because you were treated like a passenger and a slave, yeah?
Well, we had couple counselling back in 2008. That was just before my son was born. And I remember it very well because we didn't really get anywhere in there. But my grandfather had died. He was 100, an amazing man, absolutely amazing. And he had his funeral, and I wanted to go to the funeral, which was a week before my son was born. And my ex said, no, you shouldn't go to the funeral.
Why?
Because, she was like, I might give birth. And it's like, well, if you've got any contractions, I'll drive straight home.
Yeah.
But she was very, very angry. And in the counselling session, the counsellor said, isn't it reasonable that Jeremy goes to a funeral? And she just stomped out of counselling.
See, it's like, for me, I think you can see the clear red flags: control, personality disorder, not letting you connect with your side of the family. That's isolation tactics. Once you're isolated from your family, you're easier to manage and control.
And I went back to the counsellor for one session afterwards on my own. And the counsellor said to me, I remember it so vividly to this day. We had the session. I can't remember a word of the session, but I asked her afterwards. I said, I'm just worried. Do you think that if we separate, my partner will be an ex from hell? And the counsellor said very cheerfully, she said, oh yeah, she will be.
Should have got that in writing.
I know, but I was living with that.
Yeah.
And I kind of knew it myself. My best friend and my sister said, look, you've got a wife from hell. The only difference is you're going to have an ex from hell. And I was living with that understanding for really 6 years before we actually finally separated.
So knowing this,
I did everything I could to make the marriage work.
But you remained there for many years, even with these issues, try and...
Yeah, and I wanted to be there for the kids. I wanted to be in their life.
Fair enough, it's understandable.
And I was doing what I could with the kids. I took them. I've done courses to teach swimming, so I took them swimming regularly. I was passionate about cycling with them on their balance bikes and going on holidays cycling. And I was always involved. My ex didn't like changing nappies. Pooey nappies, she found the smell horrible. So I was always changing the pooey nappies. Nappies were just a complete normal for me, way of life. And so I was really, really involved in them, doing as much as I could. As much as I could do, given the long hours of work, like many normal dads.
Okay, so just out of curiosity, how many hours were you working, like on average day? Like obviously you said you're working long hours. What is long hours?
Well, they vary. Being self-employed, they vary. But I was probably, it was a good 50 hours a week at least. I was working.
Okay, so at least 10-hour days. Back and forth, 12 hours.
And physical work. So yeah, it was long days.
What do you do if you don't mind me asking?
I'm a chiropractor. Okay, so treating people's back problems, which is very physical, hands-on work. And it's something I've enjoyed doing, but it was too much, and it was relentless to try and relentless to try and support the family and to keep my ex happy, and it was a real strain.
Okay, so let's move on a little bit, Jeremy. So after 6 years of marriage, you see, so your daughter must have been what, you're 4 or 5 years old?
Yeah, and my son was born.
Sorry, my bad. Your
My
son.
my son was born, and I think that's when the trouble started. I
Sorry, just so I can keep it there. So you were in the marriage for 2 years, then your son was born.
No, my daughter.
Sorry, I was right. Your daughter was born first, yeah?
2005.
So 2005, daughter was born,
Yeah, that's Lily.
Lily, and you carried on in the marriage, obviously, in this state, regardless of the problems. You continued on, and then your son was born when?
2008.
2008.
Yeah, but we had difficulty. We'd had difficulties before my son arrived.
Yes. No. So, and at what point, or how did you exit the relationship or the family home? How did the breakup happen? Just talk us through that a little bit.
Yes, well, I was trying very hard to make the marriage work, but we were renting a flat, and then we had to move out, and we moved to more expensive accommodation.
Okay.
My ex said she would go back to work, and she didn't. And we were in a very expensive area in Berkhamsted. We couldn't afford to live.
Did she want to move there? Was it your choice, or was it a mutual decision?
Well, we had a flat which I could have moved back to in Watford, but she didn't want to move there. She wanted a bigger property, and she'd already said to me, you can move back there on your own.
Oh,
So I'd already had an ultimatum.
Oh, great.
So it was like,
basically, you had no say in it.
so it was. I was really under pressure that if I didn't agree to her moving into nicer accommodation,
Yes.
the marriage would finish.
Yeah. So.
And I felt under huge pressure to rent. And then she did say she would go back to work. She didn't, and it was really, really difficult to make ends meet.
Yeah, mate. It sounds like you've been through the mills. It sounds like that. So what happened then? Go on.
So my son was born, and then I guess I took my eye off the ball financially because I was under so much pressure looking after the kids, supporting her, and trying to work hard, and we couldn't afford the rent and the living costs, which were massive. And so in that next 2 or 3 years, we accumulated a debt of around nearly 60,000.
Bloody hell, 60 grand.
60 grand.
Just to live. Okay, just so I understand. So in order to fulfill her needs and wants, you just went along with it, and in the process, you accumulated 60 grand's worth of debt because you're trying to provide her this lifestyle that she wanted.
Yes, and because, and it was just so expensive. And then if I mentioned her working,
She'd kick off.
She'd get really angry.
Yeah. This is the thing with these. Definitely, I think there's a classic case of some sort of borderline personality disorder. Because look, if you're in a relationship with another adult, consenting adult, right? Yeah. Surely there has to be some back and forth of, babe, this is what we earn, or this is what is in the family pot. This is what we can afford. This is a lifestyle we can maintain unless you go to work or part-time. And she'd be like, yes, babe, no problem. If we want this, let's work. In a loving relationship, you support each other and you have that adult conversation. Now, what it sounds like, every time you try to touch on these responsible subjects, she goes off on one. So it means you don't bring them up again. And that's because you set off her negative triggers in her mind and she shuts it down straight away. Classic case of personality disorder. And I know how difficult it is and frustrating and soul destroying it is to live with someone of that disorder. So listen, I totally understand. So carry on from there. You accumulated debt, and how did that then lead up to the breakup? Let's just move forward into that.
Well, what happened was just that, I tried to talk to her about the debt on several occasions, and even sat down I think it was January of 2014, to sit down with her and her mother to say, look, the finances are really difficult.
Okay, what's the mother got to do with it?
Well, I guess I wanted a mother there because I wanted someone else there.
She could talk sense into her.
Yeah, because it was almost impossible. Like I'd previously done it with my accountants, trying to have a third person there.
Yes.
So that could try to help her understand.
I'm going to take a shot in the dark here. Did the mother turn on you as well? Did the mother just side with her and turn on you?
Yeah.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah, she told me I should just sell my clinic and provide a house for the family to live in. It's basically her answer.
Basically, you are no one. You do not care about. Basically, you're just a slave. Basically, you're a prisoner in your own life. You just shut up,
Yeah.
put up, do as you're told, and they don't want to hear you.
Her mother had told me.
Disgraceful. Just look.
her
Just in
mother-
case they are watching, I just want them to know that is disgraceful behaviour. Carry on.
Her mother had said to me, I'd come home one day from working hard. I was tired, and she was there. The kids were having a party, and I was absolutely shattered. And her mother just turned on me and said, "You should be helping. You have it so easy going to work. You don't know how difficult it is being a mother at home with the kids."
Okay, let me ask you a question. Yeah.
I mean, the kids were not babies at this stage.
Yeah,
they
yeah.
were going to school at this stage. They were no longer babies or toddlers in nappies.
No, but this seems like classic generational trauma. Her mum was like that. She's like that now, yeah. And like I said, this is a systematic pattern that I am seeing of behaviour that's led to a breakdown in these relationships and marriage, cross community, cultures, religions, the whole lot, yeah.
Yeah.
They're carrying trauma, generational trauma.
Absolutely.
Now, my point is, why is it they think it's okay to treat another human being like, especially someone that you're meant, the father of your children? I don't understand. You're the father of your grandchildren. Why would you treat? Okay, you tell me what you think. Why you think anyone would treat someone like that, let alone someone that your daughter's husband, your son-in-law? Why?
Farouk, you've got it so right. Actually, you're really perceptive here. That's exactly what I think has happened. It really is. Her mother, I haven't talked to you about this before, but you seem to know. Her mother hates men with a venomous passion. She sat down and she said to me, "You don't know the traumas I've had in my life."
Was she divorced?
Yes, in a very bitter, acrimonious divorce too. And my ex has always said to me, "Oh, my father never supported." But I do wonder, I don't know what trauma my ex-mother-in-law had. And clearly she suffered in life.
Yeah.
It's going back deep, and I don't know what it is. I feel sorry for her because she's living in this bitterness.
What happens is, right, we're going to talk about this again just to educate the viewers as well. Again, I've covered this before with a doctor as well, yeah. Now, mum's gone through a bit of divorce. Ex has not had a dad around, I'm presuming. The damage, the psychological damage that does in their upbringing forms a pattern or story in their brain, which then, and these negative triggers are built up through the anxiety that they develop during the upbringing, yeah? So then when they get married, these negativities, subconscious, these triggers are being triggered within your relationship, and that movie that she's got in the back of her head as your public enemy number one, I better control this situation or he's going to hurt me. So the brain concocts this story, and subconsciously you're the bad guy, you're the bad father, you're the bad husband. And like I said, you can't talk about money, sets off a negative trigger, just kicks off. It's a normal adult conversation. That is personality disorder. And what happens is, people, and look, culturally, just as a human thing, people will stick with their own. So mum will stick up for daughter. Mum has got a trauma of her own. Daughter's got a trauma. You're public enemy number one. They're isolating you from your family. So it's isolate, control, keep you in your place to establish control, to stop themselves getting into this place of anxiety and pain that is playing out in their head, which ain't real. They need therapy. That's the bottom line. And doesn't matter what you did, you would have been wrong. You could have ticked every single box and met every single demand. It would have been, yeah, but you're not doing that. Once you do that, yeah, but you still don't do that. You couldn't win. You were never going to win. If her mum and people around your ex say got behind you and said, "Listen, he's a good man. You need help. This is not how adult relationships work. This is dysfunctional," then it might have triggered her to get help and change. But when you've got people around you reinforcing that behavior, that is emboldening and empowering the perpetrator more. That's exactly what happens. So carry on from there. Sorry.
Yeah,
carry on from there. How did that then lead up to the breakup, and how did you exit the family home, or what happened from there?
Well, first of all, just following on to that, it's so right, because whenever my ex had whenever we had an argument, my ex would all so frequently just zoom off to her mother's.
Yes.
And then she'd come back, and it would be you know, it would be just silence, and there wasn't any discussion available, but she'd always get that, you know, reinforcement of
Bad behaviour.
yeah, and it happened so many times, and I wasn't really able to discuss anything with her.
No, you weren't. You were a prisoner in your own life. You were a passenger. At best, you were. At worst, you were a prisoner in your own life.
Yeah.
At best, you were a passenger.
Yeah.
And this woman, while you're working, has got your child, your children. So you're in a place where you got to be very careful how you navigate. And when you're in that situation, the emptiness and the loneliness and the imposter syndrome you walk around with, you're not comfortable in your own skin. People have no understanding of that feeling. They have no understanding how that feels.
And my ex was sort of, in a way, very clever, because in public, she was always much better when we were around other people.
People thought she was lovely. Let me guess. People thought she was a lovely lady.
Yeah,
Butterwood melt.
But when we were together on our own, it was like, it was really horrible.
Okay. Let's go into this as we've touched on it, yeah. Because there's covert narcissism and overt narcissism, yeah. Covert is when, in the public eye, no one will believe you. Firstly, she's a woman. She can pull off it's easy to be nice and friendly, and it's a lot more easily received compared to a man, yeah. But even with you, she was openly narcissistic, so I would say that's not covert. But an overt narcissist openly taking control, like openly using these moves, and she was openly doing it with you by the looks of it, yeah. Where the relationships where it's a covert narcissist, where she even to the partner. So, for example, if your missus even came across to you as a lovely person, as a victim who's had a hard life, but she controls things subconsciously, that is even harder, because it's hard to pinpoint where the issue is. So that's the two types of narcissism. I think your missus was clearly, or your ex-missus was overtly narcissistic on some level.
And I didn't really appreciate, actually, that it actually really was an abusive relationship that I was in.
You won't know it.
And I didn't know it at the time. And it wasn't until we separated and I was able to begin to look back, there was this breath of
relief
that I could just relax and I wouldn't be nagged to pieces.
Yeah, you
constantly nagged.
You
constantly
won't be accused of something or
constantly
targeted.
Well, except that actually walking on eggshells has happened since. In fact,
you've lived like that.
I've had to live, and I'm still living with her, feeling like I'm walking on eggshells around the kids, which it's been a real difficulty. But it's nowhere near to the level it was when we were together.
Okay, before we move on to the next bit, let me tell you something, right? Traditional Indian culture, yeah, where in my father's and my granddad's day, yeah, like in marriages, what used to happen is, and you know, there's certain wisdom that the generations previously had. We just think, oh, it was normal for the time, yeah. But let me talk about a certain wisdom that came from that time and era, yeah, which I never understood it till now. And I've heard my dad say it and granddad say it, that when let's say a couple get married, yeah, they're living their life, and classic, they've had a little tiff, so to speak. She phones mum and dad saying, right, I'm coming home, I'm leaving him, this and that. What mum and dad used to say back in the day, like, especially my granddad's area, generation, and the traditional Indian culture, they say to her, you can leave, but don't come here. This ain't your home. That's your home, that's your life. You don't want to stay there, sort your business out, but don't come here. Because they didn't support that behavior, it was very easy to go back, make up, and get over that tiff, because all couples have a tiff. But my point is, they didn't encourage or reinforce that behavior. Well, unfortunately, in my case now as well, those grandparents, the people from that generation in both our cultures are no longer around, the sensible generation, I call it. So now parents, instead of, like, for example, people from my dad's era now, so what they're doing is, instead of them taking on the same attitude to preserve the family unit, they're encouraging this behavior. My little princess are being treated like that. Leave him, get out there. All of this stuff. This is encouraging and feeding into the family breakdown. I always felt, actually, that my ex wanted to have the kudos of being a single mum somehow, you know, and I don't know, seems weird, but yeah. All right, what we'll do, we're going to go to a quick short break. After the break, we're going to talk about how you exited that relationship. Back in a minute. Right, we are back. Jeremy, let's move along a little bit onto how you exited the relationship, how the separation happened. Did you have an argument, a storm out, police call? What happened? Talk us through it.
Yes, gosh, because I've subsequently learned exiting an abusive relationship isn't an easy thing to do.
No, very difficult.
And what happened was is that I knew the finances were bad.
So you were in debt. So let me clarify this. You were in 60 bags debt,
Well,
60 grand.
in that 2014, I realized finances were very bad, and I did a lot of research looking at really careful analysis of our accounts to begin to really see that we were well overspending. And then it wasn't until, ironically, believe it or not, we were on holiday in Italy, and I got the final confirmation letter from my accountant when I hadn't realized I made a big mistake, which is unlike me, but we're human. I know I find it still hard to this day to forgive myself, but that I've overlooked the tax due. And then my accountant told me we've got a massive tax bill, which was that I hadn't been able to save for tax because we were overspending.
Okay.
And so suddenly I realized that the debt and the overspending had led to us to be nearly 60 grand in debt.
Okay, so look, let's just touch on this again while we're on the subject, yeah? Is it because of the pressure and the dynamics of the relationship that you were in so much emotional, mental turmoil that it's easy to bury your head in the sand and not care about the finances because the finances were a secondary problem to your bigger problem?
I was working so hard to try and keep the ship going, to keep support the family, and to spend the time really analysing it carefully and looking after the kids when I wasn't working. All of it together, it was huge. It was huge pressure, no doubt. And I have to give myself some kindness, some empathy that I'm human and I made a mistake. But it was a joint debt, but it had got there, and we'd got to the stage where literally we simply couldn't any longer afford to keep living renting a property that was far too big and far too expensive in a lovely area.
Beyond your means,
especially when we got a small flat which would have done where we could have lived for a fraction of that cost.
Okay, so let's move on to 2014. You had a tax bill.
So
how did it then lead to the exit in the relationship?
Well, I remember it so well because we were on holiday in Italy, and I got the letter from my accountant, and it just hit me like a steam train. Oh God, we're massively in debt.
Right.
And I remember saying to my ex, I've got a letter from the accountant, and I really need to talk to you about it. And I just remember the angry reply I got, which was, "Don't talk about it now. We're on holiday. I don't want to know." And it was, I felt it was like a pit in my stomach because
you realise you're on your own.
Here we are. I've been hit by this steam train of a realization, and it really hit in my gut. And my ex just didn't care. There was
a complete lack of empathy towards you and this debt.
Oh, completely. And I remember we were friends, and I just burst into tears, and
it was quite cold. It was quite callous and cold.
It was horrible. I know. And anyway, when we got back off holiday, we sat down, and I just said, we can no longer afford to keep living in the flat in the house we're renting.
All right.
And my ex was really angry. Anyway, I remember Einstein's words going through round and round in my head, thinking to myself, I hated him. Those words were banging in my head. It's insanity what I'm doing. I'm trying the same thing over and over and over again to make this marriage work, and it is never going to work any longer. I have done everything I can to make this marriage work. I could stand calmly on my feet and go, I've never been a nasty dad. I've never been angry. I don't raise my voice. I've been calm. I've worked hard. There are no affairs. There's nothing in this marriage. There is nothing more I can do. This is the end. And I got that. I knew that. And so Anyway, we had devised a plan that we'd move into her mother's house.
No, hold on. So, okay, you had this thought, like you said, that you've done your best. You can't do any more. You accepted that.
Yeah.
But you were still together. You still stayed in there.
Well, yes, we were. And in my head, I thought, do you know what? I actually wanted my ex to say, given that I knew in the background those counsellor's words from years ago saying, yes, if we separate, she'll be an ex from hell. I was really worried that she'd be really angry at me if I was the one to say we need to separate.
Okay.
And actually, I wanted her to say it.
Okay.
I really did, because I felt it didn't make any difference in the long run, but I did want her to say it because I felt she'd be less angry at me if she was the one who said, I think we should separate.
Okay.
So we've got a plan to move in with a mum. And I thought to myself, we'll move in with a mum, and then I want to sit down again with her and say, where are we going? And I say, well, if you don't want to go to counselling, where is left for us to go? Okay, and I wanted it to come work the conversation around to saying jointly, at least jointly, or for her to say, no, this isn't going to work.
But, okay, you wanted to see sense, some sort of sense.
Yeah, some sort of sense. But as it happens, we were trying to move into her mum's house that was too small. And a week before we were going to move there, she turned to me. I came home from work one day. She said to me, and she just said, we were making dinner, and she said to me, I think we should separate.
Oh, flipping it.
And I just replied, okay. That's all there was to say.
You just thought, whoa, okay. So how did you, when she said that to you, knowing what you knew, that you've tried your best, this is pointless, it's futile, Einstein's words, when she said that to you, was it like, were you going like, hallelujah?
Well,
was it like,
no.
You celebrated in your head, or what happened?
No, it was a bit of a...
What was the emotions that you went through then?
Yeah, well, she asked me a question. And this was a really interesting thing, because she said the first nice thing she'd said to me in years, and also the last nice thing she's ever said to me. And she asked me, she said, how do you feel about it? When she asked me, do you want to separate? And I said, okay. I said, and my response was, I want to be with someone who loves me. And the nice response, which was the inkling of, that just showed an inkling of humanity and compassion. She said, you deserve it.
Wow. Yeah,
and that was the last nice thing, first nice thing she'd said to me in years, and the last nice thing. That I do deserve to be with someone who loves me. She recognized in that statement, she said, yes, it said to me lots of things. It said volumes. It said, yes, I don't love you. And yes, it also sort of said, well, really, that I do deserve it. A sort of recognition.
Do you think you also acknowledged that?
Yeah, it wasn't
how you were treated.
Yeah,
no,
I think I was.
She knows she treated you badly.
I think it did. It said a lot to me.
Okay, all right. So let's move along a little bit. So that happened. So that day, what happened? Did you go your separate ways from that moment onwards? What happened? Talk us through the breakup.
She moved back. We were in a rented house. She moved out to her mother's house with the kids.
Right.
And I moved back to
the
flat that I own above my clinic, except the flat wasn't available. So I had nowhere to sleep. So for 2 months, I was kipping on my treatment floor on a put up mattress, just sleeping in one room, living in one room.
That's bad, but listen, I just want to say, Jeremy, that's better than living out of the back of a van here. Carry on. That's still pretty good.
Oh my God, is that why? It's bringing it back, is it?
I live off grid, man. I'm having PTSD. I'm going to need therapy after this podcast. Carry on. Carry on. You moved back to the flat and you own that building.
Yeah,
properties.
I did. And there was some lovely Spanish tenants, and I sat down and they said, don't worry. They were really nice. They said, we understand. We'll move out. It's fine. I gave them the 2 months notice. And gosh, it was a relief when they moved out 2.5 months later and I was able to move in and have the 2-bedroom flat.
Okay, so just so I keep track of what's going on. So she said to you, you deserve love, let's separate. She goes to mum's with the kids. You go back to your office building or work building that you own, or the business owns, I presume. And you live there while she got this, and effectively while she got a 60 grand debt on your name, in theory.
Yeah, I took all the debt.
Yes. So you walked away with the debt. She walks away with the kids.
Yes. The immediate thing I needed to do when we separated was to separate and have some financial control back.
Okay.
And funnily enough, I spoke to a family solicitor, and she said to me about separation. She said, the family solicitor, yes, it's funny, Jeremy, there are 3 times when the woman will get really angry with you. The first time is when they realize about the money. Then they're going to get really angry. The second time is if you get a girlfriend.
Yes.
It's fine if they have a boyfriend, but if you get a girlfriend, they're going to get really angry.
Oh, hell breaks loose, yeah.
And then she said, and the third time they're going to get really angry again is menopause.
Oh, you're bloody hell.
Anyway, so I needed to, that's just an aside, but I needed to separate I needed to have control over the money because I needed to regain some
financial control.
I've got
over
this
big
debt. I've taken all of the family debt, and I needed to control because suddenly I've got to pay off this debt and I've got to live. And the first thing I did was I logged on to the CMS website.
No, hold on, slow down. Right, okay, look, let's just slow it down for a minute. You've moved into your work building. You slept on the office floor effectively. She's moved in with the children. Was any arrangements made at this stage? So that interim period, while you're trying to get a handle on the business and the debt and the family finances, was there any arrangements put in place for child access, child maintenance? No. Or was it like, that was the last conversation you had with her? Because I think when we skim past it, you got to understand the logistics of how tricky it is when relationships ended, you walked out, she's got the kids, it's an awkward situation. You don't know when you're going to see them, the emotional turmoil, we can't skim past that. So what was going through your mind as in, yes, it's ended, I'm sleeping on the floor, am I seeing the kids next week or not? Am I going to see them ever again, every other weekend? What's the plan? How did you deal with that?
There wasn't. Well, yes. Well, but the first thing I did, and I just want to say this, the first thing I did was I logged onto the CMS website.
Okay, when you say first thing, how long after the breakup? If you walked out, she said you deserve some love, you walked out, when did you log on to CMS website? What compelled you to log on?
I realized that I needed to stop the spending from the joint credit accounts.
Okay, right. Now we're getting into it. So you had joint accounts still in place, family accounts.
We had a joint account and credit cards, and I needed to stop
the spending.
So I needed to do that, but so I decided that what I needed to do. So I logged onto the CMS website,
right,
and I did a calculation to see approximately how much I should be paying her.
Right, okay.
And I wrote her a letter and I said, I've logged on, these are the calculations. I showed her the calculations from the website and I said, I'll be paying you more than that because I don't think that's the right calculation. Can pay you a bit more, which I possibly couldn't afford, but I did because I wanted to support her.
Yes, they're your kids.
My kids.
Wrong with that, yes.
So I immediately started paying her contributions directly.
How much did you pay, if you don't mind me asking?
I was about 400 quid a month, 450 quid a month, something like that.
And that's 2014?
Yeah, 2014. So it was more than the calculation at the time. But that's what I did immediately because I had to regain some sense of order with the money and the finances. So I did that immediately.
Right.
So I could live and be peace in my head that I'm doing the right thing.
No, you're providing for your children, nothing wrong with that.
But I'm also not just paying her maintenance at this stage. It's probably double that because I'm also paying for all the after-school activities for the children. It wasn't just the maintenance. I was paying big ballet fees, school fees, dancing fees, 11 plus, karate,
so you're
swimming.
Paying loads of other stuff already on top of the 450.
Absolutely, it's probably double that. It was a big amount.
So overall, you're spending near enough 800-900 quid, close to £1,000 still on the kids.
Yes, but then also I've got the £700-800 of debt of loan fees to repay all the debt.
Yes.
As well. So I've got massive loan and debt fees.
60 grand debt you're still paying off.
Child maintenance. all the extras, and
living costs.
I was spiraling into debt, working hard.
So so also at the same time, what people forget is you still got your own living costs.
Yeah, my own living costs just to live, which were not high. I was not living extravagantly.
No, but it's still a cost that you have to try and provide.
I was running an old Civic that was, in the end, it had done 230,000 miles. I just kept it because I couldn't afford to buy a new car.
No,
that was out of the question.
Those old school Honda Civics back in the day, very good, solid
car.
I
The
remember
car
them.
just ran and ran and ran.
Yeah.
And in the end, it was a stupid alternator that gave it up. And you know, but it was a brilliant car for many years.
It was, I remember. Now let's get back to forget the car. Forget the car for a second. Yeah, there was a boy racer car back in the day. Honestly, boy racers. You know,
yeah, S-Type.
Yeah, was it
Type R?
Type R. Yeah, that's it. I remember that. Yeah. That was showing our age, right? Let's go back now. Yeah. So you had your own living costs. You were paying nearly £1,000 to her overall accumulated kit for the kids and whatnot. You were trying to pay £800 to £1,000 for this debt that is hanging over your head. You're trying to keep the business up afloat and running, which is then producing money to pay all these other things amongst your own living costs. Obviously, that is a very high pressure situation.
Massive financial pressure.
What people don't realize is these pressures eventually is what post-separation are pushing 10 men a day, post-separation into unfortunately ending their lives, you know. So let's just give a thought to them, and a shout out to Split the Difference, Equal Starts, all the other organizations that are trying to bring the awareness around this and expose all of this. So shout out to all of them. Shout out to Sister Sally and all of them.
The support along the way from everybody that I've had recently, from Sally at Split and all the team and the gang, and it's been an absolute lifesaver for me. The Families Need Fathers has been amazing. FNF, they've been initially an amazing support for me. My family, my sister, who's just my rock in my life.
While we're on it, shout out to MFSF, Muslim Father Support Forum. They're doing a lot of great work amongst FNF and all the other. What's the other group that Stuart Blake's group? Stuart Blake's group, if you're watching, Stuart and Naz, shout out to you guys as well. Shout out to all the fathers groups that are supporting fathers. Right, carry on from where we were now, yeah?
Yeah, so
shout outs are out of the way now.
So I was under this huge financial pressure, but I'd like to turn back to your question about contact with the children.
Yes, so whilst all this was happening, your focus was on that. You wrote her a letter. That's where you were.
Well, yes, I wrote her a letter explaining about the finances. And then there was the issue of me seeing the children. And it was really funny because I remember it so well.
Did you ask in the letter for access? As in, when can I see the children, or how are we going to do this? How did you approach that?
We separated at the end of October. Now, my birthday at the beginning of November, we took them to my sister's in Cambridge with some family, and we had a barbecue and a bonfire. And I just had this it was a bit of a momentary epiphany, or how can I say it? Just as if a massive cloud had lifted temporarily for me to think that, wow.
You can go to your sisters.
Well, no, but wow, we've separated, and I just thought, wow, I can be with the kids. And I can be me, I can be myself.
I'm getting lost. So you had the kids with you and you went to your sisters for your birthday?
Yes, I did. And they were with me with the family. But what came into my head was, wow, I'm going to be able to have the kids every other weekend. And when I'm with the kids, I can be myself. I won't be nagged to hell. I'll be able to relax and enjoy being myself with the kids.
The control element won't be there.
And I won't have to keep just towing the line, just do this, do that all the time.
Prisoner, you won't be a passenger.
I can be a proper dad with the kids. And there were one or two weekends when I had them, and my brother even said, wow, you're so much more relaxed with the kids. And wow, and they even respect you more.
Because you're not under the dictatorship. When you're in these relationships, it's like living under a dictatorship. That's what it is.
And I had, wow, I'm going to be able to really be with the kids and be a dad properly. And then all of a sudden, it was like, bang, it hit me. And a letter or an email arrived, and it said, and it was immediate, and it was like a dagger. It was an absolute dagger, and it was like, I am the primary parent, she wrote. I'm the one who makes the decisions where and when they can come and see you. It's not for you to decide. And it was like, no. And then it's immediately like, no, it's their choice whether they want to see you or not. It's not your choice. And you don't have anywhere decent for them to come and visit and stay right now. So they shouldn't be visiting you. And it was all of this. And suddenly I was plunged into this
turmoil
of, oh my God. And then
misery and pain.
And then she'd agree that I could have them for an afternoon on the weekend. And then,
how were these conversations happening? Via letter?
well, mostly
email?
via email, because, and really fortunately, and I have to, a massive thank you to my family and to my sisters for endlessly making sure that I said nothing aggressive or angry. And I was coached in the FNF groups, don't ever say anything angrily to your ex. Keep it calm, keep it considerate and polite. And I also at this time got into something called NVC, non-violent communication or compassionate communication. And I'm passionate about this. And I never wrote anything aggressively. I just said, I'd really like to see the children. Please, can I see them? Would these dates work for you? And I was just hit with a barrage of
This is a good segue just to inform and educate people out there. Right. Oh, sorry about that. Right. What Jeremy just said, guys, is very important. Do not take the bait. That's the word. Do not take the bait. Do not engage in this verbal back and forth and aggressive verbal communication, because none of this will help you in the long run. Do not take the bait. Do not give in to your emotions and your frustration and anger. You need a clear head. Take a step back. And like I said, the sensible approach is the best approach. It doesn't make you any weaker or less of a person. You're in a bad place, but you got to think clearly, and adding more emotion and frustration to the pot is going to make it worse. So that's very good, very important. Just highlight the importance of that.
I was given fantastic advice about the dangers of them in 2014, particularly. That legal aid had stopped and accepting cases of domestic violence. There had been a 70% increase that year of domestic violence claims. And I was coached strongly, don't ever meet with your ex in a private, secluded place.
Do not
meet
yes.
in a public place. I would never go to their front door. I would stand back from the front door to give them space to come to me, so you don't get even close in proximity to my ex. I've almost never walked over her driveway to go to the front door at her current house. I nearly always just stay in the car.
Yes, this is good advice. I'll tell you why, guys. If you don't play the game at this stage, like I said, there are people there who are advising her to file for what you call a non-molestation order, occupation order, and they don't even need evidence to hand these out. The family court hands them out like sweets. So if you turn up for a civil conversation anywhere, you being the man, this can be turned on you in any way, shape, or form that they want. Hence, do not engage, do not meet, have witnesses, make sure it's a public place, record every conversation, audio, video, whatever you can. Cover yourself, cover your back, take all the precautions. Best, I think, to avoid completely. Use a third mutual person that you're both friends with, ideally, to do the communication through. But avoid any sort of confrontation or meetings, ideally. Otherwise, you'll be slapped with a non-mol, and it's horrible. You don't want one of them.
And one of the best bits of advice I was given from my sister with the non-violent communication, and then I would be whacked with a page of absolute nastiness from my ex, saying how I've never cared about the children. You've been an absent father. Why are you all of a sudden you caring about them when you've never cared before? And it would be horrible, hurtful things. And the rule number one that I learned was don't respond immediately. Just don't. And I would stop and breathe and pause before responding. And then I learned a really, really important phrase, Farouk, which was and I've learned more since, just keep it to the facts. Don't get involved in any emotional conversation. So I would often write a one-sentence response, which was, and for the court process, I would just write, I have a different view or a different perspective about much of what you have written, but I don't want to get in an argument.
I like
Full
that.
stop.
Very diplomatic.
And for me, that was a great sentence.
Take a note of that.
And then I would just simply say, okay, would it be okay if the children come to me on these dates and these times? Question mark. And I would leave it like that. So my response would be short, just about when I was seeing the children, just the child arrangements, and nothing more. Or with time, maybe a bit about whether I was paying for this or that, but just the facts, and none of the flowery, well, you should be paying or I should be paying.
Don't
Just
get into any of
keeping
that.
it simple.
All right, Jeremy, let me just summarize this element. So, October 2014, that's when you sort of, the relationship ended, you've gone your separate ways. You had on and off sort of contact via email communication.
Yeah, and I had a little bit of contact, but because I didn't have anywhere for them to stay.
Nothing significant though.
For 2 months, it was very difficult.
Right, so for 2 months you had on and off contact, nothing significant, but the odd weekend or a day here and there, yeah?
It's very little.
And you were communicating via email, but she was throwing these buzzwords at you. I'm the primary parent, you have no rights. We know that fathers have no rights, you didn't tell us. Throwing all these buzzwords at you, people were guiding you to make sure you don't get into a confrontation.
And the kids,
what happened from there?
And the kids started on the, Dad, you need to pay for this and that, by the way.
Oh, okay, so the kids, so in your meetings, they started coming out of this
No, when
language.
they're with me.
Yeah, they started coming out of this language.
Yeah. That started. But we did have mediation. We went for mediation twice, and it was only one session, and we went for mediation in about December.
Aye.
And it was some help. If for no other reason, it was worth it because we arranged. Because what I say about exes, my ex does. She does sharing, but she does sharing one way. So I've not seen my kids for Christmas since we separated. But the original arrangement was, okay, she'll have them for Christmas for the week, and then I'll have them, and I had them for the New Year week. Right. And actually, the first year we separated, that was fine. I was just happy that I had them for a week. I wasn't worried. I had to let go of, I'm going to be with them for Christmas. And I've let go of that since. But I also knew, Farouk, that had I said, okay, let's share it year on year on, if there was a Christmas when they were supposed to be with me, she'd probably have got all upset and be ringing them and emotionally upset with them. And then the kids would have gone, oh, Dad, we'd actually want to spend some of Christmas Day with your mum, actually. And I just knew that my Christmas Day would have been ruined with them. So I just went, and I remember the judge in my first hearing saying, I love the simple arrangements of, I had to let go of when I was seeing the children, but just say, okay, I've got the New Year week. That's good enough. I've got a week with them. And the first year I did have a week's holiday with them.
So effectively, you took what you could get.
I took what I could get, and I had to learn. I'm a dad, and I have to bow down to stop worrying about small matters of, that's just one day.
Yeah.
And I for a few years after we separated, I just had they had a double Christmas. They had Christmas Day and presents with their mum, and then they'd come to me for Christmas lunch and Christmas presents with me. It was like, for the kids, it was a double Christmas. And it didn't matter to me that it wasn't on Christmas Day. You know?
Jeremy, this is what we're going to do. We'll go to a short break. Now, after the short break, I want you to just skim a little bit forward, as in how many years this went on and at what point did the CMS get involved. So back in a short break and we'll continue on from there, yeah?
I got a text message saying, you now owe £2,013 per week maintenance.
Sorry, say that again?
£2,013 per week.
Right, Jeremy, let's move on a little bit now. So, look, you've separated, you've seen the kids on and off. By the sounds of it, over many years, you saw them on and off, you took what you could. Explain to us now more about how long this went on for, and when did you get involved with child maintenance services? Let's move on to that.
Okay.
And talk about, obviously, while you're talking about this, keep us in the loop with your financial arrangement, because obviously you said you had an arrangement with her, you were paying her, you were paying for loads of kids' stuff. When did the CMS get involved? And obviously, when did your court journey start as well? Let's talk about that.
After the first Christmas, I was paying maintenance directly which I've always done. I was paying which was as agreed by the maintenance. There were no issues. And I was having great difficulties still seeing the children, but I was always in email conversation, politely requesting that I see the children.
But you've seen them on and off.
I was seeing them on and off. Not every weekend. They could come and stay in my flat, and it was slightly better, but it was very, very difficult.
Nothing structured. It was hit and
Nothing
miss,
structured. And then in May, I had to start the child arrangements order for a structured child arrangements.
So you filed a C100.
C100. It took well over a year to happen, because I filed the C100. There were delays in the court, craziness. Eventually, we had the C100 in May 2016. So this was 18 months after we separated. And I have to say, at this point, Farouk, I really want to say I have had I've been horrendously battered by the family courts, and that's a conversation I want to come to. But I also want to shout out to say that I had my first judge, Mellenby, in Watford, was an amazing judge.
Shout out to Mellenby.
Judge Mellenby. She's retired now. I'd love to meet her again to say thank you, because she was so perceptive. She knew immediately what the score was. She knew exactly what was going on. And there was some hilarity in the courtroom, absolute hilarity, and some things I could talk about in that courtroom that were just so funny. Just amazing. I could divert myself, but I won't talk about them now. But she gave good arrangements, what I felt were normal child arrangements.
So what did you get? Give us a breath. What did you get? What did they give you?
One night in the week, plus every other weekend. But I arranged it with Kafkas because of the difficulties of handovers, that I would collect them from school on the Friday night and return them to school on the Monday morning.
All right, let's just break this down a little bit. So how many hearings did you have to get to that? Because that's not obviously one hearing. You must have had a whole 3 or 4 hearings to get to that.
Yeah, we did. We had the initial pre-directions hearing. Then we had the hearing set for October. Then the judge heard half of it, and then we were told by the usher at lunchtime, go away, she's ill. She ordered a Section 7 Kafkas report. We went through the whole Section 7 Kafkas report that said there was a clean report with no issues. So that was good. The Kafkas actually report recommended the handovers at schools to avoid the issues of handovers and the stress. So initially, I was delighted with the fact that I'd got them for one night, and every
other weekend. So okay, just to clarify, so this must have gone on for about a year. This whole case, the whole C100 application, start to finish, the final hearing took about a year.
About a year.
Okay, so and you got good contact, which is good.
I got good arrangements, initial arrangements.
And were you involved officially with the CMS at this stage or not?
I was only involved as a direct paying parent.
Yes, so it was still a private arrangement.
There was no issues with the CMS. I was just paying as directed, but I was paying double, of course.
No, like you said, so you were paying, you had a private arrangement. CMS officially weren't really involved in your situation.
So I was paying CMS plus all the family extras, plus going more into debt. But that was continuing. But I was pleased that I'd got the child arrangements. 5 nights every 2 weeks was amazing, and half the holidays. My ex was dead angry against it, and I now have come to realise that often, and people said it to me at the time, court orders, directed court orders, imposed court orders often don't work because she never agreed. And actually I realised that the best court orders are, if you can actually do it with your ex, is to have a court order by consent where you sit down with your ex, you arrange the agreements with your ex, you both come round table.
A consent order, basically.
It's consent, it's a court order by consent is far more powerful. And I would recommend any dads out there, please do everything in your power to have a court order by consent. Even if it means giving up the arrangements that you really want. And it may mean you have to go for less. Because unfortunately, at the end of the day, and it's the first thing I learned when I separated, the Fathers Need Families guy, he said, Jeremy, you're a dad, you're in the doghouse. You are not in the primary position to argue. And I would beg any dads out there, don't be aggressive to get the perfect arrangements. Because if your ex doesn't agree, it'll create hell later.
Right, Jeremy.
Get a court order by consent. Sit down and arrange things. And if you want to, if you can't, if you feel you need to, get the court to consent it, and through the legal system, it won't cost a lot if you do Mackenzie Friends, and both sign it, and then it will be calmer for you going forward.
Right, just want to clarify. What Jeremy's talking about is what we call a consent order. Consent order is different from what the court orders finally. And what he's trying to say is if the missus agrees to it, she's more likely to stick to it. So you might have to give up a little bit more just to ensure she sticks to it. But ultimately, look, it is very difficult dealing with some exes. That doesn't matter what court is given, they're not going to stick to it in some cases. But look, consent order is ideal if you can come to that arrangement somehow.
I had great advice from a family solicitor at the beginning. She said, go for arrangements that you can actually manage. And I would implore any dad out there, 50-50 is a great arrangement if you can get it. But actually, it's not often workable if you're working hard.
Yeah,
actually, in reality,
logistically is difficult.
You know, and actually, if you think, right, I've got to get a 50-50, is it going to work? It might work for some of you. If it doesn't, don't do it. And if your ex is arguing, no, you've never seen the kids that much, go for less. Go, okay, but I do, and go for an arrangement that you can manage. And if your ex is happy about it, she's far more likely to stick with it. So Jeremy, if you can organise that, please do.
Right, Jeremy, let's go back to your case. So you had a court order dished out to her. It wasn't a consent order, it was a court order, forced court order. So what happened?
So what happened. Actually, the court order worked really well for about 8 months.
That's not bad, okay.
Yeah.
What you say, 8 weeks, but 8 months.
Well, it worked well for 8 months, and then the issue started. Then my ex started to say, "Oh, your daughter doesn't want to stay with you," and she started to breach the court order. The kids didn't come, and it was a slow dwindling of my time with the children. And
and was it, when you were with them, was there still further signs of this alienation and change in their attitude? Dad, you need to do this.
There was a change in their attitude, and there was always. And I was, unfortunately, with mobile phones, Farouk, ever since the children came to me after separation, it was like I was being spied on. Absolutely being spied on. Their mother would not let them go for text messaging them constantly when they were with them.
Yeah.
And it's actually one of the biggest blockages for me being able to have a meaningful relationship with the children, was just that I was constantly being spied on. What are you doing? Where are you going? What are you eating? What time did you get to bed?
Yes.
How much TV are you watching?
Guess what? But that's what I'm saying, Jeremy. You probably ended a relationship, or you were happy to get out of a relationship, because in some cases that is being done to you while you're in the relationship.
Yes, absolutely.
You're being spied on with the kids, and the environment between the kids are being controlled while you're in the relationship. So when you, like you said, when you leave the relationship, you have this moment where you think, wow, I can be myself around the kids, naively thinking once I end it. It doesn't end there.
No,
it continues even worse. Yeah.
So then there was this question of the kids being very young and coming to me, and whether they should have their mobile phones in their bedroom at night. And at that time, it was like, no, you shouldn't. I was taking the phones away at night. So my ex bought my daughter a second mobile phone and told her to keep it secret behind my back so she could text her if she needed to, if dad took her mobile phone away. So she was actually already teaching my daughter to lie to me behind my back, spy on me behind my back, even at the age of 10. I mean, it was shocking.
But Jeremy, what do you think this is doing to a child?
I know.
I mean, it's
Farouk,
heartbreaking. What do you think it's doing to a kid? Man?
Oh my God, it's
horrible.
It's horrendous. I know, and I've got the WhatsApps where my daughter is copying and photocopying bank statements that she's seen, and sending them to her mum and saying, "I've got these bank statements. I've seen them from Dad, and I'm sending them to you." And her mother's encouraging her to send more of this financial information over to her and copy this stuff to her.
So she's telling her to spy on your financial documents and stuff.
Yeah. My daughter is only 10. She doesn't know what she's doing.
Yeah. So mum's manipulating her to fish out information from...
Oh my God, it's crazy. Just crazy. And that was really... alongside the children constantly asking me to pay for this, pay for that. It was a real start
Yeah.
of
Okay, we can see where.
financial
Yeah.
coercive control and
Yeah,
abuse.
yeah.
It was, and I was literally living under the fear that if I didn't pay more,
The dad trap. You were in the dad trap.
I would end
Got
up
you.
not seeing the children. And it was a horrible, I was walking on eggshells thinking, I've got to be a perfect dad here. You know, I remember one time we were driving home from the weekend and my son met a friend of his and they played in the stream. And it just so happened that I didn't have any spare socks. So he got back in the car and his socks were wet. And I dropped them back at their mum's and she gave me hell. Why has he come back with wet socks on? And it's like, you know,
You're
and I was
not
given
gonna.
a
Yeah.
third degree about
Wet
not
socks.
caring for him properly because he'd come home in wet socks. It's like I was still walking in eggshells, trying to be so that she couldn't argue. And this was even before the court hearing, that she couldn't argue that I was an unfit dad to have the children. But it went on and on, even after the court hearing. I'm not fit enough to have the children. They can't do their homework at yours. They need to do the homework at my house. They can't
Control
come to
never
you.
stops. The control never stops.
And it's dwindled. And so that when my son went to senior school, I began, I can't come to you anymore in the week, Dad. I can't do my homework at your house. I've got to do it at my mum's house. She bought the nice house near the school. And so it just dwindled and dwindled, my contacts.
It's soul destroying. Listen,
Yeah.
it is soul destroying. Right, Jeremy, let's. I think
So-
I get the picture
so-
of the
so
situation.
the CMS
control. So when did the CMS? So obviously, look, she had your daughter unfortunately spying on you and your finances. She was already sounds like building a case for the CMS, yeah, even though she was getting money. So when did the CMS? When did your challenges with the CMS start?
Well, the CMS issues actually it hit like a steam train, and I didn't know it at the time. It hit like a steam train in about June 2021.
Sorry,
So-
it was June 2021.
June 21. So that's 2.5 years ago now. It was like a steam train, a silent steam train at first because I didn't know it. But during COVID, there was been a reduction because of income and not working. And then suddenly I had a demand for £1,000 a month
Out the blue.
at the blue.
So you got a letter from the CMS saying we need
Bang,
£1,000 a month.
£1,000, which is like double what I paid before. So I rang them and I was like shocked. And I said to them at the time, you know, their mum wants me to pay next term £800 a month extra. That's another £8,000 on top next year for my daughter's accommodation when she's still under maintenance, plus the maintenance. And now I can't afford this. I said, it's crazy. The caseworker even at the time said, yes, I know, they shouldn't spring it on you like that. Anyway, after 2 long conversations with 2 caseworkers, it was agreed I will pay them £500 a month.
Okay.
So the month before, I'd paid them £400. And I wrote an email to my ex saying, I've agreed £500 a month. Last month I paid you £400, so here's an extra £500. Next month, the standing order will go to £500 a month.
Right.
Now, so I don't know if it was because of the weekend that I set the standing order up, and then on the 3rd of August, my ex rings child maintenance and says he's not paid.
Right.
Now, I didn't know this at the time. The child maintenance never said this to me, but they have now recently admitted that she did ring them on the 3rd, complaining that I didn't pay. So there was no breakdown in payments.
Mm-hmm.
It may have just been because it's on my bank statement. I paid it. It may have come out on the 4th or something because of the bank holiday, which is normal for banks.
Yes, yeah.
The CMS never rang me to ask, has there been a breakdown? Have you paid? They never communicated and questioned this. So they believed the word of, I'm afraid, a pathological liar.
Without fact checking what was
any
reported.
facts.
So this is the point.
Yeah.
It was not fact checked. They just took it at face value from the resident parent, and then they did what?
And then I got a text message in August saying, I've been advised of a change of circumstances. Please check the portal. Should I have a break?
That's right, Karen. No, fine.
Okay. So I checked the portal. There were no letters, no communication, no explanation, nothing to say about any change of arrangements. And actually, at the time, I had assumed that text message was related to the changes that we'd agreed in July.
Right.
I had no idea, except that I might have got now some direct debit mandates from them, which actually I had no idea why I was getting direct debit mandates, because...
So just to clarify, just so we keep up with this, that business happened with the standing order delayed due to the bank holiday. She reports to the CMS. CMS don't fact check it and they action it without fact checking it. Next thing you know, you've got a letter saying there's going to be a direct debit mandate where money's going to come straight to your account.
No, nothing like that.
Okay.
Nothing like that. But as I'm self-employed, what happens is that I didn't know, but I was getting these direct debit mandates, and I didn't know what they were about, because the letters from the Child Maintenance Service are completely unclear. It's deliberate. They don't put anything in written clarity and nothing personal. So you often just don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
Anyway, I was paying her as agreed from July. So
Right.
to my mind, there's nothing wrong.
Okay.
So and then in November 2021, I got a text message saying, you now owe £2,013 per week maintenance.
Sorry, say that again?
£2,013 per week.
Just so I understand, I heard it correctly.
You did.
£2,000 per week.
Per week. Per week. That's £2,013 per week.
That's over £8,000 a month.
Yes.
And this is November 2021, out of the blue, you get a message, email, whatever, saying £2,000 a week.
Saying, and if you don't pay, court costs, threats of court action, and penal action and imprisonment almost immediately, without any warning or explanation.
That's scary. Go on, carry on.
I was shocked, but I thought it was a joke. Well, actually, I still think it's a joke.
Yeah, it is a joke.
But actually,
it's scary though.
So, and then I rang them, and of course, and I spent hours on the phone. Oh, we'll ring you back. And then they didn't, so they kept me hanging. And all of a sudden, they were expecting me to pay them back £8,000 just like that, immediately, with no warning. Eventually, I managed to get to have the first and last sensible conversation with any single one child maintenance representative in December the 7th, 8th of 2021. And she said, "What's gone on?" And I said, "Well, I've been suddenly," and she apologized. She said, "That shouldn't have happened. They shouldn't have just sprung these payments."
So they've admitted, so someone admitted there's a mistake.
They said it was a mistake. And then in this £8,000 they wanted me to pay back immediately, there was collection fees, which I knew nothing about.
So they're adding that onto that now.
There was collection fees, there were arrears payments. And this agent had said quite clearly to me, it's a big mistake, and she explained why they shouldn't have added all the collection fees. She said, "We will take the collection fees off your case." She said, the arrears, she asked me, "Send all the payments you sent to your ex." So I sent her on a schedule of all the payments. I was continuing to pay the £500 as agreed in July, because I didn't see any reason to change that, because the Child Maintenance Service had gone loopy. They kept firing me this payments and that payments, and it was changed almost every week. There were several payment changes, and it was mad. I just said, "Well, I don't know what's going on." And this caseworker said, "Send me all your schedule of payments." I sent her the schedule of payments, all the extras. She said, "Okay, we will not charge you the collection fees. We will wipe the arrears from the system."
So just to clarify, December 2021, you had the conversation. They've agreed to wipe that £8,000 plus the collection fees plus this ridiculous amount they've just accumulated out there to wipe that. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so they wiped it.
Wiped it.
Okay, great. What happened there? What happened then on then?
Then after in January, I got these new demands.
January 2022.
I got these new demands of like still £1,300 a month including, and I also explained to this worker on the 7th of 8th, by the way, that I'm also paying an extra £8,000 that year, £800 a month for my daughter as well, for her accommodation, which should be covered under maintenance, because
that should be under maintenance, but
was
you were
still
paying it out of
covered.
goodness of your heart.
She
You're a
said
father.
in 7th and 8th of December, she said, yes, we should accept that as a special arrangement. I'll speak to my manager and we will start a special arrangements investigation. In January 22, they didn't start the special arrangements, but I'm getting demands for like £1,300 a month.
Right, sorry, let's slow down. I've lost a bit.
I know, it's complicated.
So December 2021, they wiped off this.
They said they would
wipe debt, and then the collection fees that they added on top of that.
They agreed to wipe that off.
They wiped all that off.
Well, they agreed to wipe it off.
They agreed to wipe it off. You thought, right, okay, finally, this will be sorted out. January 2022, then you get a letter or text saying what again? That
about at this stage, the new arrangements, but it was like £1,300 a month.
Okay, so where did that figure come from? Why did
I've got no idea, Farouk.
So again, just to be clear,
it's crazy.
This is an organisation, a private company that are contracted to the government to collect the child maintenance. They're now randomly sending you a letter in January to say, yes, December, that was a mistake, you wiped it off. We've now calculated out of thin air or whatever, God knows what they work on, yeah, that you suddenly now have to pay £1,300 a month out the blue.
Yep.
Right? So, go on, carry on from this. And you then said, look, I've already got an unofficial arrangement where I'm paying £800 for the accommodation.
I've said this to them several times already, by the way.
Right, yes.
None of them listened. But I rang them again, and the caseworkers, none of them knew my case. Oh, I don't know about your case. I'm sorry. No, I don't know what's going on. And I was like shocked. And this caseworker in December said, if you need to speak to me again, please ask to speak to me or a member of my team. So I rang or I wrote saying, please can I speak to Andy Taylor? And I got a message from the portal, no, you can't speak to Andy Taylor.
Who's he? Who's Andy Taylor?
Well, that was the caseworker. Sorry,
that was your caseworker
in December.
Right.
So, and I wrote, please, and they just said, blocked me. No, we can't put you through. Or I said then, okay, please, because she said, and then I wrote again saying, please can I speak to one of her team members, which is what she directed. No, we can't put you through. They refused to communicate with me about it. The next caseworkers didn't know anything about this conversation. I was getting new mandate letters to pay by direct debit because they wanted I didn't know at the time. I now know what that meant. That meant they put me to collect and pay.
Right, yes.
I didn't know that at the time because as far as I'm concerned, I was on direct pay. In fact,
yes.
as far as I'm concerned, Farouk, I still am on direct pay because no clear process has ever been followed for them to switch me to collect and pay because there was no breakdown. I was paying as agreed. You know, I've always paid, and that's the thing. I've always paid my maintenance plus all these extras. I have never not supported my children. And in fact, as an aside, I just want to say that this is not about me supporting the children. This whole issue with the CMS, it's not about me supporting the children.
It's about how corrupt they are.
It's about how corrupt they are. And I would say to any dads who are not supporting their children with anything, I say to you, shame on you. Absolutely, shame on you for not supporting. And I equally say to any women who are claiming that their dads are violent or abusive or making up stuff just to try and get maintenance, I go to you, shame on you too. How dare you? Because you're causing such a huge injustice against those dads who are trying to support their children. And you're causing a huge injustice against those women who really are suffering at the hands of domestic violence, which, when it does happen, is a horrible, horrible thing to be put through. So I am not saying it's more women or men, but it's not about the children. I have always supported. But the thing is that what happened then was in February, to go through the story, in February, I got this letter saying they're starting an investigation into special arrangements. That took 3 months to even start it.
Okay, sorry, just let's slow down now.
I know.
So February now, you're getting all these letters back and forth. They want to put you on direct, collect and pay, whatever it is. Eventually, with all the phone calls and the back and forth you had with them, they said to you in February, right, we're going to look into your case. Yeah, that's what you mean?
I just got a one-liner, we're looking into special arrangements. No real detail.
Okay, what does that mean, special arrangements?
To see whether to see whether they will accept
your arrangement that you
the
had.
payments for Lily's, my daughter's college fees.
Yes, so that £800 you were paying for her accommodation,
would it be
will they
accepted
accept that
towards
as a payment
towards
right?
maintenance?
So let's carry on from there. What happened there?
Well, I was still paying that. I kept speaking to caseworkers. And by the way, I was also writing because I was getting continual harassment demands for payment, pay, court costs, court action against you, removal of assets, imprisonment. It was like a mantra. I was getting harassed. Court costs payment, imprisonment, you must pay, court costs payment. And I kept writing saying, I feel bullied and harassed. Please, can we communicate? I kept saying it to them. I feel bullied, harassed. Please, can we communicate? They wouldn't. And I kept saying, this is inhumane. I wrote, look, please communicate. I just want to get this sorted. And I kept saying, please, can we sort this? No one would speak to me with any clarity. And then, of all things, in February, in February they say they start the February special arrangement. Before that's even concluded, in April, they now say, we're taking you to court.
For non-payment?
Yeah. And this was February 2022. So then I'm living under this huge stress of them completely refusing to communicate.
And constantly bullying and threatening you.
Bullies, harassment, to pay.
Yeah, and building this debt on you.
And now I'm getting this. So I was shocked and I rang them and it's like, I couldn't get through. No one knew what was going on. And I was signed off sick, because it's so much stress and it's horrible. It's a horrible, horrible thing to go through. And I'm thinking, what on earth? I'm being taken to court when they're complete non-communication. So I let it go. And then nothing happens. And then my income really dropped. And
so, all right, so you went off sick, obviously, due to the stress. Your income's now dropped. You've got this pressure bubble on you. You've got this absolute giant chasing you. Right, we are back. Time is short, as you know, Jeremy, so we're going to try and continue on from where we left off. I just want you guys to know there's going to be a part 2 to this where Jeremy will go into the CMS journey. And Jeremy, do you want to we won't give it too much away, but his ex won the lottery while he's going to deal with CMS and all these problems. She had a big win on the lottery, but we're going to talk about that in part 2. Now, Jeremy, where were we? February 2022, you were getting letters from the CMS. Let's carry on from where we left off and how you were dealing with that pressure and time and moment. Just talk us through all of that and where you were.
Between February and April 22, I was writing continually saying, please, can you communicate? They wouldn't put me through to the caseworkers as they said. Kept saying, and they just refused to speak. I kept saying, but with continual repetitive demands for payment, costs, removal of assets, imprisonment, and all of this, court action.
I just want to touch on something, Jeremy, which I haven't had a chance to talk to you yet. So, what people don't realize is this: when you get these letters, when you open that letter and that thing, can you talk us through the emotions and the feeling and the mental state that people, because it sounds like when you've not been at the receiving end of this,
it's a trauma.
It just sounds so easy. So you got a letter, it's a
trauma.
Letter. People don't realize that that anxiety, that cortisol, and you feel like just falling in a rock and disappearing.
People may relate this to, for example, if you're waiting for that letter from your boss to say you might be fired, and you're waiting, or you feel you might be, and you're waiting to wonder if you are, or and it's that dread. But you get the letter, and it's all the text message saying you've got a message on the portal, and it's like it just hits you, and it's a repetitive trauma. So that the more it goes on, you just continue. And I get these horrendous messages. We're not going to speak. We can't put you through. We're not going to talk. And it's like, and I replay, please, can we communicate? And I was always calm in my correspondence, but I'd say I feel bullied and harassed. And I'd say, this is inhumane. You're not talking to me about the issues. They refused.
Jeremy, as you are aware, CMS are causing 3 additional deaths, is it a day, because of the harassment and bullying. Now, I'm going to ask you straight, at any point of this whole period, especially after the separation, I mean post-separation, that whole period, loss of contact with children, then this harassment and bullying from the CMS, did the thought ever cross your mind of ending it? Or like sometimes I've even said, if you're on a motorway and you think one turn here or there and this all ends, like I don't have to deal with this. Did these thoughts, dark thoughts, ever go through your mind?
Personally, I think I'm really lucky, and I have to be honest. It's put me under huge stress. It's cost me sleepless nights. I have nightmares. I have daymares about it. It comes up in the day. It just frustration and anger. It's no doubt about it. It's been horrible, horrible thing to go through. But I've had tremendously good support. I've been lucky. I've got an amazing family, my sisters and the support network, and it's so important to have that. And and at times I've had to scream and shout because I'm so upset.
Yeah. It's burning away inside.
It burns away inside. But so they took me to court. They just started court proceedings in April.
2022.
Before they'd even finished the special arrangements organisation, before they'd even willing to speak to me, we're taking you to court. I was like, boom. And I didn't do anything about it. Well, I did. I rang them, but they didn't respond. And then nothing happened. But I was still living all this time, and I was signed off sick from work, and I was living under, well, what's happening here? And it's horrible.
But because you were signed off sick, you weren't earning money, so were you falling further into debt?
Struggling, yeah, of course.
How did you support yourself? Like, you weren't earning any money, you were sick, you got people harassing you and chasing you, you still got bills to pay. How did you manage?
Well, I've been very, very fortunate, and my mum's had to dish and help me out, which has been amazing, and it's not great. But I have to say I'm very lucky, and I've managed. But and then and then it went silent for a while and then about in September it all kicked off again, and I got them ringing me and hassling me, and I'd speak to the caseworker. So they rang me up, and the caseworker, and I knew I needed someone to have listened to all the conversations. So, by the way, at this stage, I did a data access request and got all the CDs. I don't actually want this to go out on air that I got all this information, but I got a data access request.
How did you get that? Is that something anyone can? So if someone's going through it now, can they apply for this?
I got a data access request. You can on the government website, you can ask for all the telephone conversations, that you've had with the CMS, and they will provide them to you, and the notes. So you can get all the information of all the historic conversations that have taken place. So I did a data access request, and I've got all the telephone conversations from the previous 18 months. So on the 3 CDs, I huddled away, I would put my headphones on, I went into a cafe, and I just typed out and transcribed word for word every single telephone conversation with every agent. I could have got some online thing to do it for me, but I needed to write out my case and know and understand my case. I knew the facts of my case inside out.
Aye.
So I knew what I said, what I hadn't said, and what they all had said. And I've got them all. I've got it all on a document. So I've got it all typed out. So I know every single case and every single conversation. And it took a lot of time. And I have to say, Farouk, I went there and I had to sit there and huddle there and do that. And I have to say, it was like eating shite. I mean, it's a horrible thing to have to do, but I knew I had to do it to know my case.
Yeah, no,
but
you're
it just
strong fellow,
it took me a long time. And you have to have the strength to get your case and your facts organised. Anyway, so in September, a caseworker rang me. And I said to them, do you know my case? And she said, no, I don't know your case. I thought, I cannot speak to someone who does not know the historic background. Okay, I asked her, does anyone in your department know my case? And she said, no one will know your case. And I was like, what? How could no one know my case? I now know it's a deliberate tactic from the CMS, Farouk, that they will never get the same agent to speak to you twice in a row.
To keep you on edge and keep you hanging at a loose end all the time.
They will always never know what's going on.
Right.
And they will never put as little as possible. They will put as few words as possible in writing. Very unclear, with no specifics about your case, general terms, really very misleading, vague. And they do it deliberately because they do not want to be pinned down by making clear arrangements. And they want it to be spoken. So the best you can do is get a data access request and have those CDs, have the typed out CDs, and have them to hand to have bring them to court, if need be.
Okay.
So, anyway, this agent got really angry with me. No, tell me about your case. I said, no, I can't. I need you to know. I need to speak to a manager who knows my case. No, tell me, she said. No. And she wouldn't let me speak. I said, please let me speak. No. She went on, please let me speak. She got really angry at me. Finally, she let me speak. And I said, please, can you get a manager to ring me? But please ask them to listen to every telephone conversation in the prior so they understand my case.
Okay.
And she just slammed the phone down on me. Another agent, I don't know if she was a more manager or just someone else, then a month later rings me up. And I thought, oh, good, she's going to know about my case. Hello? So she goes, so tell me about your case. I said, do you know anything about my case? She said, no. Tell me about it. Yet again, time after time, the agents, they know nothing. It's confusion. I went through it all with her. I went through some of this story. I said, please go and listen to the telephone conversation we've had in the 7th of 8th of December last year, where you agreed not to enforce collection fees and arrears. Okay, thank you. She put the phone down. She did not respond in any clarity about that telephone conversation.
Right.
The only response I got was, sorry, we can't help you anymore. We've passed you to the DWP complaints department.
Right, okay.
So when they finally do not want to correspond, and I've had this since, they will just pass you over to someone else. It's a known tactic. I've seen it now. You can see the pattern.
So the tactic is they string you along, they palm you off, they're constantly vague. Every time you speak to someone new or different, so you can't actually pinpoint the facts of the case.
Yeah.
And you're basically run around in rings. They run rings around you, and you're going around in circles constantly.
Yes.
And this is a deliberate tactic to put you off your game and frustrate you.
And there's constant harassment all the time for payment,
so
costs.
Do you think they're hoping that in order for this harassment to stop, you might think, well, if I just pay them, this harassment will stop? Is that the overall goal, you think?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, when they're, again, charging through collect and pay, the dad's 20%, the mum's 4%, that's 24% their profit for the maintenance service. They are there to make money out of paying parents. And I also think they deliberately pick on dads who they think have money, who they can enforce to pay.
Okay, so did you not submit your doctor's notes to say, look, I'm sick, I'm not earning right now?
That hasn't come into the relevance at the moment. It will.
Okay, fine.
That will come in. But anyway, so the DWP write to me. Mm-hmm. They make no mention of this conversation, the 7th of 8th of December. They make vague mentions of arrears and stuff and all of this. They assume it's still due. In my mind, it's clearly not due because they've agreed not to enforce it. Mm-hmm. They only know half my case. And I've written back going, this is, I think, willful blindness. You've completely avoided discussing my case with me. Mm-hmm. They don't, and they're all, I think it's a mixture of being completely muddled, completely overworked, and deliberate confusion. Deliberate obfuscation.
Deliberate tactics.
And it's a recognised form of bullying, is demand with non-correspondence, is a deliberate bullying tactic. So it's bully, and also it's actually designed to mentally screw you up. I don't know what the right technical word for that is for it. but it
keep you on edge.
keep you on
constantly.
edge. But it's designed to just really, you know, you think, am I going? I just you know, I just think at some point, am I going mad?
Yes.
This is madness, and I just can't go. This is just insanity. I just want clear communication about the numbers. Come to an arrangement, make a sensible arrangement, and that's it. Done, job, sorted. I know where that I am. They know where I am, and we've cleared it. Which I had thought we did in December 7th.
The thing is that they have this cloud constant. It's like this weight around your neck you've constantly got that you're walking around with, and you can't seem to get any common sense,
None.
any communication. So
No.
this weight around your neck just stays there.
Yeah. So,
Jeremy, as you know, time is short. So yeah, we've got 5 more minutes. So conclude this bit, and obviously we will carry on next week in part 2. So yeah, so you've got about 5 minutes to try and conclude some of this,
well,
which we will pick up obviously in part 2. But carry on.
yes. So they refuse to speak. DWP refused to speak. I start an ICE investigation, independent complaints
ICE.
examiner
ICE
investigation
yeah.
as a complaint, because I don't know where to go. I think this is another sham investigation. They say it's going to take 18 months. But I've got to complain somehow, and I've got to go somewhere to say this is complete madness. I just want to talk the facts. So I start an ICE investigation. The maintenance are not corresponding. CMS are not corresponding. And then all of a sudden, 1st of May, they slap me with an order of 11 grand. And they're saying they're taking me to the magistrate's court.
So 1st of May 2022, you're slapped with an 11 grand debt,
Yeah.
false arrears, and you're being taken to court
Yeah.
for that debt.
Yeah. So
all right,
I think that's a.
I think let's conclude there. So
Okay.
we'll pick this up in part 2. Just want to apologise for the background noise and the scenario. We are set up in a a very crowded coffee shop actually. It's been a chaotic morning, Jeremy, just to even get to this stage. But look, in part 2, we'll have a much better background scenery, a lot less background noise. So we will pick up in part 2. Is there anything else you want to say to conclude part 1?
No, just keep strong. You've got to keep fighting. Do not give in to these tyrants, these criminals. It is not okay.
Right. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel, like and share, and we will catch you on part 2. Thank you for watching Disqualified Dads.